This is a confirmation. You were never ordinary. Never. Just another person in the throng. You were the shift, the force, and the oddity. Your energy is unique, untamed, and unmistakable. And when something that's strong takes a step back, the whole world feels it. They underestimated you. I mistook your presence for permanency and imagined you were always within reach. But you were not designed to be confined. Your absence is not void. This is a statement, a power stronger than words. The silence is louder than any explanation. When you withdraw yourself, you don't just depart. You alter the rules of their world. This isn't about vengeance. It is not about demonstrating a point. It is about claiming your power, refusing to be drained, and understanding that your energy is not a gift to be wasted. You're not here to be understood by the unworthy. You don't pursue. You don't beg. You don't look back. You climb. And when you walk ahead, unaffected by the weight of their understanding, they are left to unravel in the place you formerly held. This is your time. Your development is unstoppable. Your presence is memorable. And your legacy is intact. Welcome to your period. Sigma is the chosen one. Measured withdrawal does more than just weaken their grip. It altered their whole sense of dominance. Now they float aimlessly in the void you created, attracted by the gravitational pull of what they once disregarded. The hole you leave behind is not just quiet. It is a deliberate erasure, a blank so vast that their previous views crumble beneath its weight. They look for traces of what once was in an attempt to rebuild a world that no longer exists. However, the foundation itself has crumbled to dust. This was never about rage, nor was it an act of petty retribution. It was a pronouncement, an unchanging rule that does not bargain with people who live on borrowed light. They mistaken your presence for something permanent, not recognizing that great power does not reside in places unworthy of its scale. You retreated not as a sign of surrender, but as a statement of sovereignty. Like a tide withdrawing from a deserted beach, you went with confidence, untamed and beyond reach, never bending to be understood by those who couldn't see. This wasn't just an emotional act. It was a representation of something far bigger, a power beyond explanation. A departure of this significance does not simply cut links. It spreads tremors over unknown worlds. The fragments of what once was now orbit in the abyss, bound by the echoes of your departure. They believed they were in charge. They believed that time would enable them to influence the path. Those in positions of actual authority, however, do not work on borrowed energy. There was no warning, and no gradual unwinding of links. They were left reaching for the phantasm of a presence that no longer responded. Their brains were primed for war and resistance, even with the gradual unraveling of familiarity. But nothing could prepare them for the abrupt, harsh character of a departure without return. The void left behind is more than just an absence. It is a divide that they cannot traverse. They will never be able to regain this loss. However, the gap does not produce disdain. It promotes fixation. In the ruins of what they once took for granted, they look for explanations, revisiting events, examining words, and attempting to figure out where they went wrong. But there was no error, simply an unchanging truth that they failed to realize in time. They anticipated hesitancy, a lingering presence, a comeback. Instead, they were confronted with unwavering quiet that said more than any words could. They mistook absence for a storm that would put their patience to the test, not an irrevocable decree. But the conclusion was absolute. A wall was built in its place, not a door that had been left open. Leave a comment. I don't linger. If you refuse to return to areas that formerly took your presence for granted, you are not here by mistake. If you sense a tug, a deep feeling that you have been selected, now is your time. Click the super thank you button and contribute $50 or more to get deeper insights, unique information, and a path that fits with your divine destiny. This is not only a gift. It's a proclamation, a step toward being the person you were intended to be. Take the call, walk with us, and totally embrace your destiny. Your adventure starts now. The absence was not a sudden occurrence. It crept in like an unbreakable frost, seeping into the silent corners of their minds until it was unstoppable. They first dismissed it, believing that diversions would suffice. However, the noise failed them. Laughter seemed empty, triumphs rang empty, and the world around them seemed colorless. What was previously ignored now bothers them as they realize the extent of what has been lost. They never completely realized the power, which slipped past their fingers with little prospect of return when comprehension dawned. The entire cornerstone of their world had cracked. They mistook the situation like a game, expecting there would be discussions, warnings, an opportunity to alter the conclusion. But those who walk with purpose don't second-guess their decisions. Hesitation is a luxury for those who are unsure of their value, and those who are genuinely selected do not go back to where they were never intended to be. Your leaving had an effect that extended beyond the physical. It caused invisible shocks across the fabric of reality itself. What had previously been considered as commonplace was, in fact, the foundation of their universe. Now that foundation has shattered, demonstrating how frail their idea of power was. They had based their comfort on what they imagined would always exist, never realizing that presence is a luxury, not a right. This was never just a parting. There was an evident change in the energy balance. The absence did not just result in a void. It tore through the fundamental framework of what they thought was solid, creating an emptiness that no constraint could fill. Those who take genuine power for granted lose more than just access to it. They are forced to live in the shadow of something they will never have again. There is no hatred or fury, only a quiet appreciation for what was previously neglected. The loss has served as an unexpected teacher, and the lesson is lasting. Something so rare is never possessed, only honored. The area left behind was not just vacant. It was irreplaceable. They tried to fill it with noise, fresh diversions, and empty stand-ins. However, the subconscious does not lie. Some ties are engraved too deeply to be erased. Every notion comes back. Every peaceful moment becomes an echo of what previously was. They look for traces of that presence everywhere, attempting to reconstitute even shards of what was once home. However, those with actual power are not interchangeable. They aren't only seen or heard. They are thought to be deeply ingrained in memory, like an unstoppable force. The tie remained strong despite the distance. It intensified the focus. The more they attempted to escape, the more they were drawn in. What was previously neglected has now become hallowed, but permanently out of grasp. The absence did not break the relationship. It made it into a relentless force from which they would never be able to escape. They disrupt every discourse, examine every minute. They were looking for significance when none had been provided for them. They look for answers, but none will arrive. Those who proceed with confidence do not hesitate to explain to those who refuse to listen when it counts. No doors remain open. There is no trail left for them to pursue. They don't want to forget because it would entail accepting that nothing like this will happen again. It was never only separation. It was a case of dependence. They were not prospering, but rather living by siphoning what was never theirs to steal. The depletion was stealthy and subtle, hidden behind fake interactions and empty presence. However, those who walk in genuine power do not exist just to provide fuel for others. They are neither drains or conduits through which the weak may feed. Nothing was taken during your absence. You merely recovered what was always yours. The illumination did not wane. They were just left in their own shadow, vulnerable in the absence of a borrowed blaze. What looked to be entire was really an illusion supported by something bigger than they could grasp. They were never powerful, only attached to a power that supported them, concealing their vulnerability. Without it, the fracture spreads, the mask falls, and they are forced to face the emptiness they had previously avoided. They seek substitutes, clutching at mirrors that never quite match, pursuing something they can't identify. However, the past does not repeat itself, and what was freely given will not be provided again. They're left roaming among the ruins of a building that collapsed the minute you moved away, seeking to rebuild something that was only stable because you permitted it to be. However, people who migrate with purpose do not return to abandoned locations. They do not stay among people who are unwilling to stand on their own. No imitation can ever satisfy. They may explore ceaselessly and try to shape others into something familiar. However, the truth is immovable. There's no replacement. There never was. They mistaken presence for permanency. Believing that what was behind them will always be a genuine force does not allow them to stay unnoticed. They do not remain since their worth must be shown. Realization does not equal salvation. Regret does not reverse time. And while they are trapped in a loop of desire, dissecting the past in quest of a route back, the ones who were never intended to be caught march on, unaffected, unshaken, and untouchable. For the one who has more will get more, and he will be prosperous. But the one who does not have will lose all he has. Matthew 13 verse 12. There are those who live in the light and walk with strength. They are not required to declare a palpable presence before speaking a single word. And then there are some who only appreciate the significance of that presence after it is gone. You did not just walk away. You reclaimed everything they never realized was yours to offer. You see, the selected aren't only known, they're felt. When they go, it is more than simply a temporary absence. It is a rebalancing of power, a change that disrupts all that has been established in their shadow. What was once considered commonplace is now treasured. What was once viewed as predictable is now the great unsolved enigma in their minds. They mocked your quiet, your capacity to watch without responding, moving, or explaining. However, the same stillness they previously found annoying is now the thing they can't get away from. Like a locked door without a key. Like a paragraph written in a language they don't comprehend. You've become the riddle they are unable to solve. They first assumed they could continue as they always had. Your absence, however, caused just a tiny alteration in the environment. But as time passed, they understood it was more than simply distance. This was something else. A restructure, a reckoning. You were never just a part of their universe. You were the gravitational force that kept things together. And now, without you, they are wandering. They underestimated you. They thought they had you figured out, that they could read you and control the rhythm of your presence. However, those who are genuinely selected do not follow predictable patterns. Others can track. You're not predictable. You embody divine disturbance. You are the lightning that they believed was merely a flash. They assumed the storm was just a wind. Now they sit in introspection, attempting to analyze the past, untangle the mistakes, and pinpoint the precise moment they lost control. Is this anything they said? Is there anything they did not say? They rewind and repeat, searching for a way back. They are certain that if they analyze it enough, they will be able to break the code. But the reality is far more awful. There is no way back. You are not one of those who have failed to see value when it is presented to them. You do not return to the areas that misunderstood you for something transient. Those who are genuinely selected don't pursue. Do not plead. Do not seek affirmation from individuals who only learn to value their presence in its absence. You move with precision and confidence, knowing that your energy is not a common coin. And so, as they seek answers that will never come, you march on, undisturbed, unshaken, unmistakable, a force too great to control, too precious to squander. A presence so uncommon that those who lose it spend their lives attempting to replace something that was never intended to be had. But this was never about a certain time, a solitary error. Those who recognize their own strength do not walk away rashly. They leave after the instruction is over and their presence has served its purpose. When the cycle came to an end that was unavoidable, there was no way to change it. There is no route that leads back, no redemption. I am waiting on the other side. What they formerly considered a promise was never theirs to claim. And now, as they stand before a door that will never open again, the weight of that knowledge sinks in. They grasp for something that is no longer present. What was once concrete is now only a memory, and the more they strive to reassemble it, the farther it escapes their grasp. The confidence they once possessed has faded into a ghostly existence, something that clings yet stays untouchable. They expected that everything would remain constant, that the same options would always be available. However, those who move with purpose do not stagnate. They leave areas where their presence was devalued. What was left behind was not just an emptiness. It was an impenetrable force, leaving an indelible impact. Those that move with strength do not vanish. They leave an echo, an indelible imprint on the mind of those they leave behind. They did not just depart. They rewrote the landscape, changing the structure of everything that was previously recognizable. They now inhabit in a realm that has been fundamentally altered, a reality that no longer contains what they formerly took for granted. They may try to fill the gap with diversions, fresh faces, and meaningless chatter, but the intellect cannot be deceived. The architecture of their thinking has already been changed, and no copy can ever suffice. The more they attempt to avoid the emotion, the deeper they plunge. The absence is more than simply a feeling. It has become a force that pushes people in a gravitational shift. They are unable to resist. They do not pursue a person. They seek the energy, presence, and unnameable power that binds them together in ways they never comprehended. However, the past does not return. What is outgrown will not shrink to suit them again. And while they are imprisoned in their desire, those who were always destined to ascend go onward, reach beyond understanding, and grab whatever they will ever grasp again. They are exposed. They're looking for something they can't name, reaching for a presence that has already faded into the past. However, the lesson is unchangeable. They were never designed to hold anything beyond their reach. You were the power that transformed them, the trigger that altered their course. While others stay linked to what was, you proceed unafraid, unbound, and unstoppable. Their world descends into turmoil. Nonetheless, you stay unshaken, observing from a distance while the effects develop. Absence does not weaken those wielding it. It is an intentional exercise of power. While they try to recreate a world that no longer includes you, you remain unaffected. There was no dependence, just misconception. They mistaken presence for permanency, failing to comprehend that stability was always borrowed rather than their own. Now they must deal with the consequences of their own negligence. The maelstrom they find themselves in was never yours to control. It was all their own creation. Those who walk with clarity are unwavering at times of departure. It was never about impulsivity or emotion. It was about alignment and unshakable commitment to something higher than attachment. The choice was not motivated by response. It was not intended as a test. It was just time. The gap left behind is not punishment, but the reality. One that was always there, but purposefully disregarded. They previously felt they were the basis. But without you, their illusions disintegrate, leaving only remnants of the past. They can no longer recreate. The higher you advance, the deeper they fall into their own demise. They were expecting a change, a response, or some indication of hesitancy. Instead, they discovered only distance, an unshakable confidence that they cannot change. Those who travel with purpose do not falter at the weight of what has been left behind. They rise beyond grasp, beyond perception, beyond our control. Detachment is not apathy. It is refinement, the ultimate expression of might. They learned too late that what they possessed was never theirs to control. Their effect was transient, and their existence was conditional. What they thought was theirs to retain was only ever provided through grace. You remain unaffected while they try to make sense of a world that no longer includes you. Unwavering, unreachable. Separation was not only the end. It was the time of forced metamorphosis. Those who acknowledge their existence do not just go. They leave a void that requires contemplation. When you departed, the balance broke, forcing them to confront a reality they were not prepared for. You were never merely a character in their tale. You were a reflection. They were unable to escape the mirror that they had spent their whole lives avoiding. And now, free of deception, they stand alone, facing the reality they previously refused to see. The The quiet does not diminish. It echoes those who walk with assurance. There is no need to instruct using words. The absence alone is sufficient. And now, in the emptiness where presence once stood, they are left to study the lesson they previously neglected. And the light shines even in the darkness. And the darkness could not understand it. John 1 verse 5. There are times in life when individuals become blind to the light. Standing there in front of them, they mistake the radiance for something regular and disposable, until the minute it disappears. And when it's gone, they'll miss the world they once knew, the assurance they relied on, the comfort they took for granted. Everything starts to disintegrate. See? Your presence wasn't simply another piece of the jigsaw. The framework held everything together. They moved with ease, as if they had the game under control. But they had no idea that the stability they depended on was not their own. That was yours. You didn't just leave. You took back the foundation. They believed they were in control, setting the terms, navigating the course. But allow me to tell you something. True power is never constrained by fake authority. They weren't driving the ship. They were travelers on a voyage they couldn't even comprehend. When you walked away, they lost more than simply a person. They lost the power that made them feel grounded, secure, and significant. They're now standing amid the ruins of a world they created based on assumptions. The diversions that used to keep them comfortable have faded away. The assurance they carried like armor has been torn away, leaving them with just the truth. The truth they had spent a lifetime dodging. You were not simply another presence in their lives. You were the discovery they were unable to understand. But let us make one thing plain. Your absence was not a penalty. It was a change, a reckoning, a portal into the unknown. They never had the guts to go through until now. When the selected ones move, they do not leave a trail of stillness. They leave behind an undeniably changing ocean. This is the portion that will bother them the most. They cannot reverse it. They cannot turn back the clock. We can't go back to when everything made sense. You can't fill the void with cheap substitutes. Because once a mind has grown and a soul has been touched by something larger, it is impossible to return to ignorance. They will look for bits of what was lost, attempting to rebuild the past, trying to make sense of what has transpired. However, they will never find another you. They will meet others. They will develop new routines. They will attempt to persuade themselves that life is unchanging. But deep inside, they will know. Because no matter where they go or what they do, they will always sense the absence of what previously existed. And they roam among the wreckage, after something they will never recapture. You will move onward, free, unshaken, untouchable. Those who move with purpose don't just exist. They alter the fabric of reality, tearing down illusions and revealing what lies behind. They misunderstood your presence for routine, something given unconditionally, believing that access to you was inevitable rather than earned. However, individuals who wield genuine authority do not remain where they are taken for granted. Your leaving was not an appeal for attention. It was an unconscious announcement that the cycle had ended. This was not a response. It was a recalibration, a realignment of energy toward higher ground. And now, as they dig through the ruins of their own misjudgment, they can see what was always there. They were never the driving force that kept their universe together. That was you. Time does not erase existence. Distance just increases its weight. Those who recognize their value do not want to be remembered. However, their absence instills more importance in the minds of individuals who previously disregarded them. Your effect did not lessen when you removed yourself. It exacerbated it in ways they never expected. They felt they could go unharmed, ignorant that what had been destroyed was priceless. You are no longer a memory. You leave an impression, a presence that is greater from a distance than it was in person. They attempt to rebuild the past. The balance fluctuated as they sought the right time. The moment they lost control. However, there is no undoing what's already been written. What was once commonplace has now become legend, an unrepeatable phenomena that is permanently beyond their reach. What was formerly neglected has now become the standard for everything they encounter. They compare all connections to you. However, nothing lines up. Nothing matches. Nothing feels the same. They try to replace what was lost, but the void is persistent and refuses to be filled. You weren't a transitory presence. You were the outlier, the divergence from what they believed they knew. What was formerly taken for granted is now etched in their minds, not as a yearning for the past, but as an unrivaled standard that cannot be exceeded. Those with true authority do not fade into obscurity. They do not fade into the shadows of lost memories. They march onward. In doing so, they create something timeless, carved into the psyche, an echo that cannot be hushed. They sense your presence more than ever, not because they have gained an understanding, but because they have finally realized that what they have lost can never be recovered. No words are required. Silence speaks louder than words ever could. Those who move with assurance avoid cycles of repetition. Departure wasn't an open-ended question. It was an irrevocable conclusion. And now, as they try to put together what remains, they are confronted with the harsh reality. They no longer have access, contemplation, yearning, or remorse. None of this changes the result. They may study, dissect, and try to comprehend each situation, but you are already far out of grasp. They anticipated you would linger. That period would allow for a reassessment. However, those who move in clarity do not wait for comprehension. They do not hesitate to be recognized. What needs to be learned has already been covered. The door is closed. The chapter has been sealed. And what once existed will never be again. Now the attention switches. The past is no longer relevant, and the future is clear. It is time to move freely, to truly embrace the strength you have always had. Let the world see what it means to ascend without looking back, reclaiming what was never theirs to steal, and move onward, unbound, unstoppable, undeniable.